Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm a Starguide and I live here in the world of reading. Usually I'm busy traveling to all kinds of interesting places, but just like you, I've been staying safely inside for a while now. I sure have missed going on adventures. Hey, would you like to go on some adventures with me? You would? That's stellarific! I really think we're going to have a great time together. I'm going to explore the world of Serendipity, a really special place that's filled with a lot of fun characters who always have exciting adventures. Feel free to look at the pictures and just let your imagination soar. You can also read along too. Just follow along with the words on each page. Today, we will be going to a land within Serendipity called Cashew, where the ostriches live. Are you ready? Let's go! Today we're going to read Sniffles, a Serendipity book by Stephen Cosgrove, illustrated by Robin James. When we exaggerate everything, we often forget what the truth is. Near the land of Savannah, near and not too far, was a land filled with flowing silvered sands called a desert, and in the middle of this desert was a sparkling oasis called Cashew. Ivory staffs of pampas grass waved like plumes in the perfumed desert's breezes, and kangaroo mice left tiny tracks for the warm winds to blow away. Now, the oasis was filled with many other unusual creatures so wonderful that they could have easily come from anyone's imagination. Camels with humps and warthogs with bumps waded through the slippery silvered sands, looking for a bit of this or a bit of that to munch for lunch. Lizards and snakes slinked and slithered, but never withered, in the noonday sun. It was here in Cashew that the ostriches lived too. It was here that they raced about on long, spindly legs, flapping their wings that would never fly and chasing clouds of butterflies into the sky. One of these ostriches, brighter plumed than the rest, was called Sniffles. She danced over the dunes of silvered sand in search of silly adventure. Her searches were only an excuse to call to the others. "Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!" Sniffles loved attention, seeking it in any way she could. And if that meant exaggeration, then so be it. If there was a single purpled pansy that happened to grow in the dunes, then Sniffles would count it twice, then thrice, and soon this single flower would become a veritable meadow of purpled pansies growing in great profusion. Sniffles didn't limit her exaggeration to just the plants that grew in the desert, but also to little things that happened to her in her imaginative travels. One day, as she was galloping along, pounding the sands and feeling the wind whip through her velvet feathers, she stopped to watch a kangaroo mouse hippity-hop across her path. Now the mouse wasn't blind, but still and all, quite by accident, it stepped upon Sniffles' foot. The mouse looked up, Sniffles looked down, and an exaggeration began its journey. As Sniffles walked away, her imagination went to work. The mouse became many mice, and then grew into several large rats. As she trotted down the path, the rats continued growing in her mind, and soon she began limping from the imaginary pain of being stepped on by a much larger beast. Sniffles rushed back to the oasis, but by the time she got there, she was limping so badly that she could barely walk. Soon she was surrounded by all her family and friends, who anxiously asked what had happened. "I don't know," she sobbed as she dragged her leg in the sand in great imagined pain. "I was quietly eating some cashew cabbage for lunch. Suddenly, I looked up and saw this cloud of dust racing towards me at an alarming rate. I tried to run to safety, but the dust was faster and I was trapped."
"By what?"
asked the others in sympathetic anticipation. "By a gigantic rhinoceros. Crinomaris. An elephant. A large herd of elephants stepped on my foot." The desert air was filled with pity as the other creatures gently helped poor Sniffles sit down and brought her tender greens to eat, so injured was she.
Oh my goodness! Would you have been sad like Sniffles was if you told such an exaggerated, great, big, unbelievable tale like she did? I think I would have felt sorry for telling such a big tale and worrying everybody. Well, let's see what Sniffles does next.
Sniffles recovered slowly from her imaginary injury, wallowing in the warmth of the pity of the other creatures. Finally, she was recovered enough from her pain to run again in the deserts around Cashew. Oh, it was delightful to once again feel the winds whip at her feathers. She raced through the dunes and leaped over anything and everything in her path. She leaped over the old broken shell of a discarded egg. She soared as she jumped over a tiny desert worm. Running and leaping she went, until she jumped over a tiny clump of wild roses that grew at the edge of the path. As she flew right over the bush, a tiny thorn scraped her on the leg. Instantly, she came to a screeching halt, and looked at the tiny scratch, and the itsy-bitsy drop of bright red blood that dripped from the scrape. She turned and started back to the oasis as the scratch became a cut, and the cut became a wound. Soon she weaved on her way, barely able to walk at all. The other creatures rushed to her side as she staggered into the forest of palmetto palms.
"Oh dear," they cried in concern. "What has happened?"
Sniffles caught her ragged breath and began. "I had just recovered from nearly being trampled to death by the herd of elephants when I took a walk to regain my strength. I had walked only a tiny bit when I came upon this lovely nest, and in the nest was a little egg." She paused in her story as she looked about at all the caring faces. "Could I please have a sip of water so that I might continue?" One of the creatures brought Sniffles a sip of water on a palm leaf. She slurped the water and, revived, continued. "Well, as I said before, I stopped to look at this nest filled with a rare, frightened baby bird."
"But," asked a camel with a twisted jaw, "I thought you said the nest was filled with but one egg."
Rattled at this interruption, Sniffles continued. Yes, but the egg hatched and was filled with 3 rare birds. Anyway, as I listened to them singing, this monstrous snake flew into the tree and—"
"Wait a minute," interrupted the camel again. "Snakes don't fly."
"Fly? Did I say fly? Silly me. I meant to say slithered up the tree and was about to attack these 7 rare baby birds when I leaped to the breach and saved them. Oh, it was a terrible fight."
"But," asked the camel, "how did you scratch your leg?"
"Well, if you'd let me finish without being interrupted," continued Sniffles dramatically. "Oh, we fought and fought. The snake began to swell and grew bigger and bigger as we battled and turned into a great and monstrous serpent. I wrestled him to the ground and knocked him unconscious, and the flock of baby birds was saved."
Most of the creatures oohed and ahed, but the camel persisted and asked again, "But how did you scratch your leg?"
"It was horrible," sighed Sniffles, unruffled by the interruption. "I had just soothed the hundreds of baby birds back to sleep when a great wizard appeared and attacked me with a magical ivory sword. Swish! The sword cut through the air, and I was wounded on the leg. He nearly had me there, but the mother of the baby birds, grateful that I had saved her thousands of babies, I think she was an eagle, swooped down and grabbed the wizard by his cloak and flew him far away, and I was saved."
At the end of her story, Sniffles fainted dead away, or at least pretended to faint. Her head plopped as she flopped back onto the sands, for no one caught her as she fell. "This is ridiculous," said the camel. "Eggs, to birds, to eagles, to snakes, to serpents, to sword-wielding wizards. The worst Sniffles has done is to scratch herself on her own imagination." Laughing and giggling, all the creatures of the desert left Sniffles where she lay and wandered away to the important things of life. Sniffles remained in the silvered sands with one eye closed, still pretending to have fainted dead away, and the other eye opened to watch her own dismay. When she was sure that everyone was gone, she scrambled to her feet and slipped away into the desert. There she wandered for days, occasionally sticking her head in the sand to hide from her own embarrassment.
Oh no! Sniffles certainly did not learn her lesson. Her stories are getting even bigger and more unbelievable. Would you have told a tale and exaggerated it like this if it had happened to you? Would you have stuck your head in the sand? Me either. I think that's more of an ostrich thing to do. Goodness, I wonder what will happen next.
She would have been left wandering in the ever-shifting sands forever if she had not, once again, stepped from the path in search of a bite of fresh cashew cabbage. Sniffles had just bent her neck to nibble when she happened to look up as a large eagle swept to the ground and landed in a swirl of dust. She blinked her eyes in disbelief, and then blinked them again as a great and monstrous serpent slithered over the dunes and stopped right beside the eagle.
"Oh me! Oh my!"
she exclaimed in a whisper as her eyelashes flapped to make sure she was awake, which she was. All of this would have been more than enough, but just then a whirlwind whistled and whipped over the dunes, and suddenly there stood a majestic wizard with a twisted sword of ivory.
"Oh my! Oh my!"
Sniffles said as she slowly backed away.
"You guys stay right there. Don't move. I'll be right back. Boy, oh boy, nobody is gonna believe this."
She raced back to the oasis, shouting and hollering. By the time she got there, all the other creatures had gathered around. "Well, well, well," chuckled the camel. "What is it this time? Dragons? Purple turtles? Witches who fly on brooms?"
"No,"
said Sniffles, excited as she looked about her friends.
"It's well, sort of, you know." "Spit it out,"
laughed the others.
"We just can't wait to hear."
Sniffles looked around, twisted her foot, and then quietly said,
"Never mind."
With the other creatures laughing behind her, she softly shuffled back into the slippery silvered sands, never to know for sure if what she saw was real or a mirage. If you add to stories, as we often do in youth, remember silly Sniffles and her painting of the truth.
Wow, that was incredible. I know I like to use my imagination every day when I'm playing pretend or when I'm painting, but not when I'm telling stories about things that really happened. Do you think Sniffles really saw the wizard, the snake, and that big eagle? Or do you think she just imagined them? Well, either way, I don't think Sniffles will ever exaggerate her stories again. Do you? I'm so glad you decided to explore Cashew with me today. Remember, whether you're inside or outside your house, with your imagination and a great book, you can go anywhere in the world. Just like me, Lucy the Starguide. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.